Hi, this is Matt. I'm here today with another environmental book review. One of the things that I'm really interested in is the arguments as to why it is we should be protecting and conserving the natural environment. So, I think the reason why I became interested in this, at least partially, is due to a bunch of discussions I had with people whose views on environmental issues differ quite substantially to mine. In some extreme cases, I had chats with people, some of whom are my friends, who believe that we should not expend any time or energy or resources towards protecting the environment whatsoever. So that's partially what motivated me to pick up this book here, which is called Moral Ground, edited by Kathleen and Michael Nelson. So Moral Ground is a compilation of short essays, 87 essays in total, all by different authors, all of which are focused on the question of why it is that we have a moral responsibility to protect the natural environment. So all of the essays in the book are grouped into different sections based roughly on the type of argument that they make. So I'll just run through and give you a few examples. So the first group of essays in the book argues that yes, we do have a moral obligation to protect the natural environment for the very survival of humankind. So as humans, we are dependent on the environment, we're not separate to it, and at the most basic level, we need fertile land in which we can grow food, we need a stable climate in which to live, and we need clean air to breathe and clean water to drink. And so, to at least some degree, we need to protect the natural environment to ensure our own survival. Some other essays in the book argue that yes, we have a moral obligation to protect nature for the sake of our children. So it is wrong for us to degrade the environment and to pollute and then leave it to future generations to clean up the mess and suffer the consequences of that degraded environment. Some of the other essays in the book, and my personal favorite essay is in this group, argue that yes, we have a moral obligation because nature is beautiful and totally unique, and it has intrinsic value. So nature is not only to be valued in terms of its utility to human beings, in terms of how we can use it and exploit it and extract from it. It has its own intrinsic value, and it's worth protecting for its own sake. And another group of essays, there are many different types of arguments in the book, but this is the last one I'll cover, argue that yes, we do have a moral obligation to protect the natural world because justice demands it. So it's often the case that the entities or people or groups who cause the bulk of environmental degradation or pollution are not the ones who suffer most from the consequences. So to provide an example, there are some communities in the Pacific Islands which are now threatened by rising sea levels. They're finding that they're losing their land, and having salt water damage their crops due to sea level rise that's being caused by climate change. Now, in terms of the contribution of these nations to the greenhouse gases that are causing climate change, it's really minuscule. It's the large industrialized countries that have caused the bulk of the greenhouse gas emissions. But we have this disparity here in terms of who is causing the problems and who is suffering the consequences, and that is an injustice. So those are some examples of the types of arguments that you'll find in this book. There are many more. And as I mentioned, there are 87 different essays in the book, all written by different authors. So some of them are by well-known environmentalists such as Bill McKibben and E.O. Wilson. Some others are by major political leaders such as Barack Obama. Some others come from spiritual leaders such as the Dalai Lama and Pope John Paul II. Others from other figures in culture and leaders in culture such as bell hooks. Others from fiction authors. Others from scientists, from economists, from business people. So the essays in the book do represent quite a broad range of perspectives. And to summarize, as I said, there are 87 essays in the book, so it's a pretty hefty book. But because they're all short essays and they're all, just several pages in length, it's quite an easy book to pick up when you have 10 minutes or so of spare time. Read an essay or two, and you can make your way through it that way. Also, because there's such a diversity and different perspectives in the book, I definitely found that I didn't agree with every essay in the book. I didn't find everything compelling, but there were definitely some that really resonated with me, and I think if you pick up a copy of this book, you would find the same. Maybe not every single essay will interest you, but there will be some that may light a spark. So, to conclude, Moral Ground is a really great book if you're interested in delving into the arguments around why we should be protecting the environment, particularly from a moral standpoint. So that's Moral Ground, edited by Kathleen Moore and Michael Nelson, and thanks for tuning in.